Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to update you on my latest project, a late 1980s Centurion Lemans RS. I've been taking my time with this one, so this video will only cover the teardown and frame prep that I've done so far, but it's still cool, so join me. Part of being a pure, incurable bike dork is that we always have these lists going on in our head. Multiple lists, parts we want to use, frames we want to buy, bikes we want to ride, places we want to go. It goes on and on and on. I've worked on, ridden, or owned many bikes the 13 years or so that I've been back into bikes. And I've built up a pretty nice stable that checks off quite a few boxes on quite a few of my lists. I have a nice hardtail mountain bike. I have a nice pure road bike. I have some cool vintage 700C road bikes, a few single speeds, etc., etc. So at this point, my list of bikes that I would like is pretty refined. Not necessarily narrow, to be sure, but refined. For example, I think I'm close to making a run for a full suspension mountain bike. I think it's time. I love my Specialized Fuse, but I think my abilities have caught up to what I might get out of a full squish ride. I think I'm ready. I have specific bikes too that I want, not just types, like a Diamondback Overdrive, early 29er kind of thing. GT Tachyon, sort of a 700D weirdo thing that GT came up with. Maybe even a Fuji Sportif disc to replace my, I don't know if it would ever replace my Fuji Sportif, but like a disc brake road bike. It's really nice. And then there's what I'm working on at the current moment, which brings us to today's video, a late 1980s Centurion Lemans RS. I got this for $50 from a guy who had plans to restore it but never got around to it. Sounds familiar. My plan with this build is to check the box on a list that's not a brand or a model, but a genre. 650B rando, I think that's how you say it, conversion. I certainly don't need another 700C 80s steel bike, great as they are. This one seems like a decent candidate for the conversion at least, which basically allows you to run a more plump tire because the wheel is smaller and sits farther back in the rear triangle, opens up that space. I like the look of 650B conversions, and I like the prospect of a nice supple road ride. Despite putting more and more miles to mountain biking and general off-road riding in recent years, I do love a good road ride. I think I'm a roadie at my core. There's nothing quite like a dedicated road bike, a nice country road, a nice morning. This particular bike is a 58 centimeter frame. It's a large. It's my size. I'm basically a 58. As much as I vary slightly smaller and larger, I think 58 is my sweet spot. This bike obviously had seen little, if any, maintenance in its lifetime. You could tell it had been ridden quite a bit, but that was about it. There's a whole category of riders out there like that. People who just ride the bike. It's a tool. They put it against the side of the house or in the garage, and they go inside until the next time they ride. So there were some usual suspects with this teardown. The seat post, a little off-camera action. The seat post took a little persuasion with my old friend, Mr. Pipe Wrench, but it was relatively quick work. A word to the wise, those fluted SR seat posts look really nice, but they're notorious for getting stuck for obvious reasons. That moisture and junk gets in those flutes and fuses the seat post to the seat tube. But for that same reason, it's kind of easy to get them out because you can get chemicals. You get PB Blaster in there, 3-in-1 oil, whatever, Acro oil, whatever you use. It's got good access. You put them in those flutes and then, you're moving. Came out. The other component that gave me a lot of guff, though, was the bottom bracket. And I have to say, in all my years tearing apart bikes, I rarely had trouble with bottom brackets, which sounds like I'm lying, but really, I have had decent luck until this one. It was the non-drive side crank arm dust cap. They're those really nice Shimano units. They're much classier than those plastic ones. But when they get corroded and fused with the threads, it's tough to get them off without damaging said threads. You need those threads to get the crank arm off. So I bailed relatively early. You got to know when to cut bait. I did get it off the bike with the spindle and the cup still on there. And I tried a little bit more when it was off the bike, but it was a no-go. Nothing special as far as cranksets go, so no worries, or bottom brackets. Everything else came off easy and with no worries. Since I won't be reusing a lot, it was easy. For the 650B conversion, I'll need to get long reach brakes to line up with the smaller diameter wheels. And I have a bin full of parts I'd like to use for this build, from the saddle and the seat post to the drivetrain to, as I said, the wheels and tires. One thing that I've had in mind when seeking this bike out was a proper steed for a few nice crank sets that I've been wanting to deploy on a bike. I have an older Dura-Ace crank set that's super cool and will clean up nicely, but the only thing giving me pause is the 180mm crank arms. I have some more standard size 172.5 cranks that are more modern as well, and they're external bottom bracket based, which would still work for this build. There's an Ultegra, which is really nice, and a Dura-Ace 7800, really nice top of the line. It's old though, it's a little ratty. They're both very similar, but I do think that just from holding them in my hands, the Dura-Ace is a bit lighter, which is supposed to be. That's the selling point. And there's something that I really like about the notion of putting what was once an absurdly high-end part on a bike that I got for $50, corroding with a one-by build in my mind. Also, the mismatching of it all is something I like. I plan on using Campagnolo shifters with this build, with a 9-speed Shimano derailleur cassette. You know, when you mix and match that much, I think it actually becomes a cohesive vision after a while. It actually becomes the thing that's mismatched. It gives a unity to the build. So the frame is solid, but there was some real surface rust that I needed to take care of, particularly on the bottom bracket shell. Knowing that I needed to use some Evaporust, which works great, trust me, it's as advertised. On a lot of chrome parts I used it. But I decided to rig up sort of a platform with my bike stand to dip the bottom bracket shell essentially into the Evaporust container. I left it for several days. It did the job perfectly, got rid of all that rust, it's nice. I also took this opportunity to use my favorite new tool. It's an M5 tap, something I never got around to buying all these years working on bikes. But it really is worth it, and it makes those threads so nice to thread in new bottle boss bolts, etc., rack bolts, fenders, whatever. I actually bought a bigger one, a bigger tap for the derailleur hanger, which really needed it. It was really rough removing the old derailleur. Made me think I needed to run it through, which I did, and it was great. It takes all the junk out, the sort of like cut sides of the tap. That's where all the junk piles up, and you can clean it off. It's really satisfying. I recommend, and it's not expensive. They're not expensive tools, hardware store kind of thing. After that, I gave it a real good cleaning, some spot treatment with Barkeeper's Friend, and some hobby gloss black paint here and there just to cover up some spots. Looks okay from 10 feet, as they say. I did wet sand it with some 1200 grit sandpaper, I think it was, and used some polish with the orbital thing, and waxed everything with turtle wax. That's my go-to. Here we are. All that frame prep seems tedious, but I think it really lays the groundwork for a nice build. I want this bike to be a keeper, so I'm sort of going the extra mile in every area. I'm not pressed for time here. Plenty of bikes to ride. It's incredibly easy to get carried away and start rushing on a build. That's not to say it will come out bad, but with this one, I want to kind of savor every step, do everything just the right way, so that when I'm riding it, I knew I took care with all aspects of this build. And with that, we've come to the end of the first phase here. And trust me, I'm not holding out. I don't have 650B wheels yet, or tires, or the brakes. I may actually do something that I don't usually do, make it a rolling restoration. That's one idea I had. And just put a set of 700C tires back in there, just to get a sense of how the bike fits and rides, which wouldn't be in a real accurate sense because 650B is going to change that, but just as far as like how the bike fits, how the cockpit fits, things like that. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Hopefully I'll have some parts amassed, clean up one of those crank sets, make a decision on that the Dura-Ace or the Ultegra, and I'll let you know how it goes. Take it easy. Bye-bye.